How do you celebrate Christmas as an adult? Is it any different from how you celebrated it as a kid? Do you have fond memories of the Christmas period when you were just a child or any Christmas period at all? I bet your answers to all these questions vary with each person, but it also varies with time. Welcome back to the America's Trip Down Memory Lane channel. In this video, we will look at what Christmas was like in the 1960s. Christmas is a lovely time of the year, and the activities for this time vary for everyone. Some people take trips to feed the poor, some spend time with family, some travel around the world, and much more. Things were much more different back in the 1960s, and we'll be looking at how it was back then. Christmas in the 1960s was in many ways quite similar to Christmas celebrations in the 21st century, as it is filled with family gatherings, laughter, and fun. However, as Christmas celebrations today are often centered around presents in the media, in the 1960s, Christmas was much more homespun. The Christmas celebrations of the 1960s were filled with a lot of interesting stuff that we don't necessarily have in this current age. The early 1960s brought a fresh new outlook to Christmas tree aesthetics. A completely modern look in the form of the aluminum Christmas tree. Unlike today where you can actually get an actual tree grown for most of the year and cut down so you can put it in your homes. The 1960s had aluminum trees that made a shiny metallic splash in living rooms all over America. For people who lived through the 1960s, you probably have a vivid memory of these kinds of trees. Over 1 million trees were sold during the decade, as many Americans wanted to get one for their homes. These aluminum Christmas trees were one tree choice that actually steered clear of the conventional pine or fir-scented Christmas experience. However, these aluminum Christmas trees that avoided the traditional Christmas tree experience when it landed on the Christmas scene in the 1960s now brings up images of a retro Christmas past. These aluminum trees usually called for a minimalist look, and these trees were often frugally decorated with ornaments of a single color. Regardless, they still had some form of decorations. However, ornaments weren't the only things used to decorate the aluminum trees in the 60s. During Christmas in the 1960s, an aluminum tree was usually lit up by a color wheel, and kids watched as the trees changed from blue to red to green to gold as the wheel spun. This might not seem like much to someone born in the 21st century, but to kids from the 1960s, it was a really amazing Christmas experience, one that they would never forget for a long time. To the people who watched the transformation, the color wheel seemed a great way to light up those aluminum trees, so modern and magical. It was fascinating to watch, whether it was from a front row seat in your living room or the view through your neighbor's window. Apart from the beauty of the colored lights on the aluminum trees, the color wheel was also there for a very practical reason. People couldn't put strings of lights on aluminum trees due to fire safety concerns. It would have been a horrible thing for a person's house to burn down during the Christmas season. Also, while aluminum trees were used in the 60s, real trees were still popular as well. A lot of people still used fresh-cut trees chosen from one of the many provisional Christmas tree lots that turned up in cities and towns. At the time, the trend of cutting your own Christmas tree wasn't very popular. When it came to the choice of which traditional Christmas tree to have in your home, Scotch pines were favored by many people, even though they were also die-hard balsam fans as well. Unlike the aluminum Christmas trees, this traditional Christmas tree was decorated with various ornaments. However, the glass ones by the Shiny Bright Company were very common. Trees were also decorated with shiny icicles made of lead, that is before it was banned, and they hung from the branches of the Christmas tree to add to the sparkle of the celebration. Aside from having Christmas trees, Christmas cards were another important part of the 1960s Christmas experience. They weren't invented in the 60s, but by the early 1960s, Christmas cards presented a greater variety of seasonal images, surpassing those conventionally found. During the Christmas seasons in the 1960s, especially by mid-December, mailboxes would be filled with Christmas cards from one family and friends to let them know that they were being particularly thought of during the holiday season. For most kids, it was a very exciting thing to pull out handfuls of cards from the mailbox, and it was probably the only time throughout the year when a kid had much interest in what the postman delivered. And as you have probably guessed, it wasn't necessarily because of the Christmas cards themselves. These cards were a concrete reminder that Christmas was indeed on its way and that Santa would soon be making his deliveries. Plus, some of those cards contained cash gifts from distant relatives. Another special thing about the Christmas cards was that they were usually kept around the house after they were received. People kept them on a mantle, on the table, or on the top of the television, or taped them to a wall or a large mirror in the living room. People also hung them from a Christmas-themed clothesline, as this was a more innovative way to display them. For many kids, the Christmas season was a time to get something nice, and kids were very busy deciding what they wanted as their Christmas gift. Unlike this century, when you could just search on the web and add your Christmas gift to your parents' Amazon cart, things were very different back then. Kids in the 1960s looked forward to the arrival of Christmas season catalogs, often sent by stores like Sears, Roebuck and Company, JCPenney, and Montgomery Ward. Kids and adults excitedly searched through the pages of the toys, clothing, and other gifts offered within, making their wish list for Santa's pursual before passing the catalog along to other family members. Television channels even offered additional gift ideas, playing out the advantages of products before viewers' eyes in commercials that people couldn't speed past with a DVR. Many 1960s kids' toys that were seen on the Christmas lists of millions of kids during the 1960s are still classics. For example, Silly Putty was invented during World War II as a synthetic substitute for rubber, and while it had no practical purpose, it did turn out to be a great toy. There was also the Etch-a-Sketch, a cool arts and crafts toy where turning either of the knobs at the bottom of the screen to create horizontal or vertical lines let the user draw on the screen. Apart from these, the Christmas season also came with Christmas specials shown on TV. Kids keenly listened for announcements on TV or leafed through TV guide magazines eagerly to find out when the holiday specials would air. This was because these shows only aired during this period, and it was their only shot of ever watching them. Two animated classics from the mid-1960s, A Charlie Brown Christmas and How the Grinch Stole Christmas, are part of television's earliest and most enduring Christmas specials. There was also Christmas-themed music, as the 1960s were filled with many Christmas albums and singles from various singers like Andy Williams, Nat King Cole, Perry Como, Johnny Mathis, Brenda Lee, Ella Fitzgerald, Elvis Presley, the Ronettes, the Crystals, and the Beach Boys, who recorded their versions of old favorites and new tunes. These tunes carried on for years and served as a memorable moment for many people who lived through the 60s. It goes without saying, but the Christmas experience was incomplete without the annual Christmas photo. After the Christmas presents have been opened and everyone was dressed in their best Christmas outfits, this would be the perfect time to round up the kids for the commemorative Christmas photos. Siblings and sometimes their parents might be posed together in front of a seasonal backdrop like the Christmas tree or a fireplace. Some families even filmed home movies of their Christmas celebrations, and these home movies often captured only strategic snippets of their Christmas celebrations, and the movie film was quite expensive at the time. These home movies were also without sound, which was probably sometimes a good thing. There's no doubt that Christmas celebrations now are pretty great, but the Christmas experience of the 1960s was pretty amazing too. If you don't believe me, ask any of your grandparents or other senior citizens. Thank you so much for watching this video. Hit us up in the comments section and give us a thumbs up if you liked the video. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more videos.